Health and Longevity, and today we're giving a lecture about a book. It's a follow-up to the book group that we had a conversation about a couple of weeks ago. So if you have questions, you can send it through on the Facebook or the Instagram, and we'll receive your questions. Crystal will be handling that. And what we're going to talk about is the book, The Next Step in Human Evolution. And it's been 9 years, believe it or not, since I received the information that was to be included in this book. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and give you some background. Maharishi Mahesh Yogananda came floating into my bedroom in January 2011, and he came floating in the lotus position, and he looks directly at my eyes. He says, "Go to Fairfield and detox my people." And then his body just kind of turned around and he started floating out the other way, and I was like, "Where's Fairfield?" And he didn't answer. And that morning I came to work and got a phone call from a gal in Fairfield, Iowa, by the name of Janet Schwartz. And Janet invited me to come and detox. I had detoxed her, helping her lose weight and making her feel much better. Systemic Formulas had came out with a 60-day detox. I did it myself. It detoxed me wonderfully. And so Janet, she had me send her the detox, and so I sent it to her, and I think she lost 30 pounds but I lengthened it out to a 90-day detox, because I detoxed so fast in 60 days that I had a plastic plug end up blocking my rectum, and I had to pull that plastic plug out. That really hurt, but it amazed me that I had that much plastic in my intestines that it aggregated and pulled out. It actually aggregated into a piece about this big and about that big around, but it was kind of jagged, and all these molecules of plastic had literally aggregated together and ended up having, I think it was weighed about 2.5 ounces of plastic. And I had been drinking bottled water, and so I know some of it was coming from the bottled water I had drank, and who knows what other plastics were in our systems. But anyway, so I ended up accepting Janet's offer. She had 18 people wanting me to come and detox. I had up on my vision board to make $10,000 cash, because I was planning on moving out of the United States because I was mad at the government here, and moving to Europe and practicing medicine there, because the French loved American-trained medical doctors, and so I was planning on going to the south of France and becoming a doctor in France, and that's a whole other story. But telling you a little bit about Fairfield, Iowa. It's not a real big city. It was almost 10,000 people back in 2013. Most of them, I would say, were TMers. About 6,000 of the people there were followers of Maharishi Mahesh Yogananda, and he picked Fairfield, Iowa, because it was central in the United States, and he wanted to teach people how to meditate and send peace out to a warmongering country. He called the United States the biggest problem in the world at that time. And he came in actually 1973 to the United States, and he started teaching and building what I call the Transcendental Meditator Empire. And he started a university in Fairfield called Maharishi's University of Management. There's a whole story behind that I'm not going to go into, but he did that to kind of be able to get student loans for all his people, but in the meantime, they were all meditating for anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a day. And so when Maharishi came floating in, I went to Fairfield and I taught, I actually did intuitive readings on 108 paying clients, $100 each. So I made my $10,000 cash to go to Europe. But what was interesting about that whole thing was I realized, and I moved in with a guy by the name of Jeffrey Smith, and he had written the books all about Monsanto's genetic manipulations of our food, our water. Literally, he was brilliant, and he had books about Roundup, about genetic manipulations of our food supply, all kinds of stuff. And he was going around the nation teaching people about what Monsanto was doing to literally destroy our genetics and our lives. And this was back in 2011 that I stayed at his home, and I was actually able to learn a lot from him. And I had actually, in medical school, worked for a company defending Monsanto over Agent Orange and dioxin. And my job as a medical student, because I had learned physical exam and taking physical histories and everything, my job was to talk to every one of these. There was over 4,000 linemen for the telephone companies and the electrical companies suing Monsanto. I think it grew while I was there, and so it kept my job going for the entire time I was in medical school there in St. Louis. The world headquarters for Monsanto was in St. Louis, Missouri, and that's why the lawsuit was through the courts there in Missouri. And so I would examine these men, ask them questions, and see if their physical symptoms correlated with exposure to these toxins. And as you know, in Vietnam, they used a lot of Agent Orange to get rid of the jungles, so the Viet Cong wouldn't have anywhere to hide, so they could find them and shoot them and kill them easier. And so there's quite a history with that even. So in Fairfield, the Maharishi University of Management started. They called it MUM University, M-U-M University. And when I went in 2011 and taught the people, I came to find that a lot of their toxins were from these chemicals. Monsanto, because of Missouri law, they could not experiment on farms in Missouri. And so they came to Iowa and paid off a lot of people, and they had experimental farms in southeastern Iowa, which is where Fairfield is. And all of the chemicals were getting in the water systems, in the air, you know, and it was causing a lot of neurologic diseases. It was causing organ failures, a lot of pancreatitis, a lot of things that I knew how to repair. And so they were very glad that I came and I detoxed the people, and many of them came back to being perfect. In other words, their symptoms disappeared and their bodies function better, their brains function better, because a lot of these chemicals even affect the nerves in the brain and cause Parkinson-like syndromes and things. So they start shaking and can't walk as well. I mean, it was quite a problem. So anyway, I helped them for 3 years, and in April of 2014, they built a big bunch of silos out on the eastern end of Fairfield, and every time they bring the grain in and load these used silos, there was a dust that would come off them that was, believe it or not, Roundup. And that Roundup would go around the city and make everybody sick. And even though they were 3 miles out of town, it would come with the winds, and just everybody was getting sick again. And I went in April 2014, and they said to me, Scott, we're all getting sick again. What do we do? And I said, I don't know, but I think it will involve us having to evolve as humans. And I didn't realize that was the answer. And I went with the question to the, usually I ask the questions to the divine, and I get answers really fast, but I wouldn't get an answer. So for 6 months, I prayed and asked the question and didn't get the answers. And this is just a slide showing that Maharishi came to me in January 2011, and I had a dream where he came and he said to go to Fairfield and detox the people. And so why Fairfield? Because they literally were being experimented on by Monsanto. All the people in southeastern Iowa, they knew these chemicals would affect their health. They knew that there were different things going on. And so the people of Fairfield fought to keep them from building these silos, because they asked me about it. And I said, definitely don't let them build them, because the powder from these chemicals will come down and make you sick again, and surely it did. And so there's a lot more information on these slides, but I was invited to speak up by Mount Shasta in Weed, California, at the University of the Siskiyous, they call it. And Siskiyou is the county where Fairfield, where Mount Shasta is very close to, and so I kind of got the indication that I would get the answer when I would go to Mount Shasta, because that's where Guy Ballard went and met Saint Germain, and I had actually had dealings with Saint Germain since 1996 was when Saint Germain first came to me in a human form by the name of Steve Henenfent. And it was fascinating because I studied under this guy. I had prayed to learn more about the herbs from the best herbalist on the planet. This guy showed up the next morning and he said, if you'll open an herb store, I'll teach you all about the herbs. And this is what I had prayed for. So I was like, okay, I'll open an herb store. And he told me he went in, he built a bunch of shelves that actually we have. These are the original shelves that he built. And we moved them down when I left Cedar City. But he taught me all about the herbs. He taught me kinesiology. He taught me homeopathy. He taught me about crystal therapy, energy therapies, all kinds of stuff. And he was literally one of the best teachers I've ever had in my life, better than any of my graduate or postgraduate education. He was brilliant. And he left in August of 2011, and you know what happened next. Excuse me, not 2011, 2001. And we all know what happened 9/11. He was in New York and he helped thousands of people after 9/11 happened. But so I'm going to talk a little bit about faith, because we receive answers when we have faith. And it's an ability, it's actually a power you develop with your mind, believing that something is real, and you can actually create things with your belief and faith. And so one of the things that I've found is faith is a belief that is not based on proof, science, or double-blind studies. That's the religion of science. Faith is in the religion of God and the spiritual belief in God. In fact, faith in God is a very powerful thing, because God takes care of us when we have faith in God. So I just wanted to briefly talk about that. And faith changes belief into reality. And faith transforms and transmutes energy. So and I learned all this stuff, but it's interesting how this just totally integrated all of it. So I gave a talk up at the SISCU, and my talk went really well. People really loved it. I did some intuitive readings and all kinds of stuff while I was there in Mount Shasta. We stayed at a house where there was 15 of us, and 9 of them were from Arkansas, and so I called it the Arkansas house. But there's one lady there, she had these cards, and do you have any of the cards, the Uriel, Zapkiel? I was going to bring them this morning. Do we have any sitting up there? But anyway, this lady had these cards that had holographic images of energies from different archangels. And it was really interesting. She had 155 of these cards, and I was most attracted to these 3 for some reason. Mostly attracted to this one. And she said, well, step on that card. And so I took my shoes and socks off. I literally put my feet on the card, and my feet started burning, and I had to hop off the card. There was this energy, and it was so powerful. It felt like I was stepping on molten lava, you know? And she said, get back on that card. That's the one you need, because I had actually had my my orange flame from my sexual chakra had been stolen by some bad wizards, and I couldn't create for about a year. And when I went and stepped on this card, it relit that orange flame in my pelvic chakra, in my sacral chakra, which was using this card. And so I decided I'm going to buy all these cards because, you know, it worked to help ignite my chakra, and I felt the need to buy these. And so we got all the different archangel cards, and they also have the Elohim card and all kinds of cards, and they carry energy through holographic imaging. You know, we're living in a hologram here in the 3rd dimension. And so these holograms are very powerful, integrating to our holographic images of our bodies and everything. And so I did not get an answer to my question. My question was, what do we do about all the nanobots? Because back then, even, I was worried about nanotechnology and all of the things that they were doing with it. And I had studied it because I'm very interested in genetics, and nanoparticles are made with very small quantum transistors and different things. And I mean, literally, they're creating these things, and they call them nano because they're literally, you can't see them except with an electron microscope. They're so small. And so I was concerned about these things, and that was part of my question. The new viruses, the mutated viruses we were dealing with, like Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, adenoviruses, they were, you know, in laboratories, augmenting them. You know, it's called gain of function, but it actually, gain of function means it makes them even worse and cause death to people. And I was dealing with this stuff at the time, and that's why I had the question, what do we do about all this? And the people in Fairfield were getting sick from the nanoparticles that they were making to manipulate. They had developed this new technology called CRISPR technology. And so instead of using viruses to change our food, they started using other techniques. And it's quite interesting. It's too detailed to go into right now. But my question was, what do we do about, and Fukushima was spewing off a lot of radiation onto the whole planet. It actually